So as of April 15th, I have read 6 books so far this month. Let's chat about them. Hi, my name is Jeanette, and I want to thank you for joining me on the channel Jane Reads. So today I'm going to talk about the 6 books that I have read so far in the month of April. So I have filmed clips for 3 of those books, and then I need to come back on and talk about the other 3. So let's just get right into the 3 clips first. So I finished Things We Didn't Say by Amy Lynn Green. Here is the color cover of it. And I read this book, I picked this book up now, mainly because my BFF had called me I think the last week of April and said, hey, where are you on your April TBR? I want to add a book. And so I'm like, I can't yet, not yet, I still have a book to read. So then I was like, okay, I will pick it up as soon as I finish my April TBR. So I technically started this one April 30th, 29th, 30th, something like that. And I finished it 3 days later, May 2nd. Yes, May 2nd. So it was my first book of May. It is a historical fiction book, and we both read the Blackout Book Club and really enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it more than her, but the fact that she wanted to add it to my TBR when she was only 2 chapters into it, I was like, what is so interesting about this book? Then I found out, because I had not read the back of the summary or anything, right? So I didn't know much about this book. When I went into it, it was like, oh, it's completely told in letters and articles, newspaper clippings, not trial transcripts, like depositions prepared for trial. Yeah. And so it was completely told by written letters, things like that. Rather than interactions with people, we were getting the writer's perspective of what happened. And I really enjoy epistolary type novels. There is one that stands out in my mind every time I think about books written with letters that I'm like, oh, I absolutely love that one. I want to read more. It's such a unique way to tell a story. And this was no exception to that. It was definitely a unique way to follow the story. I will admit, at times it was a bit slow and the chapters felt really long. But because of the letter style, and within a chapter there were a ton of letters back and forth between different characters, that I didn't have to wait for a chapter break to feel like, okay, I can stop here. Because once I finish that letter, I can stop. So that was kind of nice, even though the chapters were long. So basically, we are following Joanna, who is a student linguist? Legit. Wow. I know what the word is in my head, but I can't get it out. So she studies languages. So she gets hired to work at a POW camp in Minneapolis, and in her hometown, actually. So she has to return home to work at this camp, and she is to be the translator to translate and censor the letters from the German POWs. And she is in regular correspondence with a language teacher who is Japanese American, born and raised in America, but his family has been moved to an internment camp because they're Japanese, and he gets hired for this job to teach. So that they met in the city of Minneapolis. And so they are communicating back and forth. And then Joanna is also communicating with her roommate, who was her roommate in Minneapolis, who is actually from England. And then we follow, there is kind of the main spokesman for the POW camp, and he kind of speaks for the prisoners of the camp. So there's articles with him, and then Joanna's boss at the POW. So basically, we follow Joanna kind of discovering herself and how kind of changing the town's attitude about these POWs being in their area and working on their farms, and some are for it, some are against it, and Joanna starts to see that these POWs are people just like they are, and they should all be treated equally. Now, she is a little naive about things and probably kind of just brushes things off or doesn't really take something seriously that maybe she should have, and it causes trouble for her. But Joanna is very studious, has been said to be like kind of ahead of her class and very book smart, so it makes sense that maybe she's not people intuitive, maybe is the word. So kind of reading people's thoughts and stuff is hard for her. So I really enjoyed getting to know Joanna. And there is kind of a romance that I want her to have with a certain character. But it doesn't seem like she has those feelings for that character. And I was like, come on, like he's perfect for you. So it kind of builds from there. And then we follow kind of through that year as different people go off to war and with the POW camp. There are some quotes in this, especially at the beginning, that I had to send to my BFF as I read them because they made me laugh. And I'm going to share them with you. If I can get this open. Okay. So the first one is, real life is dreadfully tedious. The way it interrupts reading. Or, now she goes and visits somebody's personal library collection and is looking for a particular book and realizes how they sort them. And then she's kind of writing this person to talk to them about it. And her comment is, I'm appalled at this system. Couldn't you sort by last name? Why do we bother having an alphabet if no one's going to arrange by it? And that just made me crack up because I organize my books alphabetically by author last name. I don't know and can't understand how people do it, especially with the rainbow bookshelves. How do you ever find a book you're looking for? So that just cracked me up. And then the last one, because we are Canadian, and my friend actually saw a moose outside her office window one day, I had to send this to her. If you don't receive a reply, it's because I've run away to Canada to roam free with a herd of moose. So I texted her and said, so each time I don't hear a reply from you, I know that you're hanging with the moose. So yeah, I thought that was fun. So I really enjoyed this book. And as I wasn't really sure as I got into it because it was kind of slow and took me a while to get to know the people. But really, as I got into it and kind of when you know that Joanna might be facing some serious charges and be in some serious trouble, and then something happens to another character that you're left, what's happened? Like, what? Is he going to be okay? Are they, like, what's going on? I couldn't put it down. I had to know. And then, on my Kindle, oh, this was so frustrating. On my Kindle, I get to the end of chapter 13, and my Kindle tells me book complete. And I'm like, wait, what? It can't end there. Like, that's not an ending. And then I look, and there's a postlude, which is basically a whole other chapter. And so I read that, and I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, that really wrapped up the story. It gave a proper ending to it. I have no idea why my Kindle told me the book was complete when there was this whole other section, probably another 15, 20 pages. Like, it was just like, well, that's frustrating. But that last chapter answered everything and wrapped everything up perfectly, in my opinion. I loved the reveal. There was two kind of major reveals at the end, and I absolutely loved them. So yeah, I think, I don't know. When I finished this book last night, I was very, I don't know, like this is going really slow. Do I really, really enjoy it? But now, like when I kind of reflect back on the characters, and I'm like, no, I really like these characters. And I was definitely like rooting for particular characters and really enjoyed them. So yeah, this is a 4-star book for me. I have 2 books to talk about today. I finished the novella Halfwitted by Christy Barritt. This is book number 1 of the Squeaky Clean In Between Mysteries series. So it comes between book 1 and book 2 of the Squeaky Clean series. So we're going back in time because the Squeaky Clean series went 13, 14 books, I think. I really should look that up. But there's quite a few books. So we're going back to the early years of Gabby. So this one happens between books 1 and book 2. So she is still a crime scene cleaner. And a friend asked her to help. He works for a mortuary. And they need to go to a house and pick up the body and take it back. But then he needs to leave to go deal with an issue with his girlfriend. And so she is left at the house, basically just kind of overseeing the house to make sure nothing happens until he gets back, because she can't move the body by herself. Well, because of the smell of the house, she goes out in the backyard, comes back in, the body's gone. What happened to the body? Who stole the body? Under her watch. Can she get charged for that? Can the friend lose his job? So Gabby's like, okay, I'm going to figure out what happened and get this body back, because she doesn't want to get charged either. So then she starts kind of figuring out and becomes the detective and try to piece together the things of who might have want the body for what reason. So we're following her over that. So she ropes in her friends to help her. They have to go to a humane shelter. Then they have to go meet with the ex-wife and stuff. So she ropes in a couple friends to go with her to work that through. So it is very quirky, but it's a novella. Like, it all takes place in one day, 10 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. And so it's very short, very quick. I just didn't feel like I really got there. And how did they piece everything together to recover the body in time? It just, I don't know, it felt a little far-fetched to me. And one thing I didn't like, and I mean, because I know where Gabby ends up at the end of the series, that kind of annoyed me a little bit, because she is dating one guy, but she constantly mentions thoughts about another guy, and she's thinking about this other guy. Yet she's dating somebody. Like, maybe you shouldn't be dating that person? And she kind of talks about how, like, you know, maybe they're not the right match, but she's still gonna date him and stuff. And I'm just like, really? Grow up, girl. Like, yeah. So it just, that annoyed me. I only gave this book 3 stars because, well, it was quirky and kept my interest, because I wanted to know who came and got the body, and how did Gabby not know? Now, there's stuff that was happening that was distracting her, so I mean, it kind of made sense how it happened under her nose, but it was still like, I don't know. So yeah, but I mean, I will pick up the next book of this series because I am interested, and I've liked the character of Gabby and her friends. So okay, so then the second book that I finished was, I finished my audiobook of The Guardian. So I've got book 2 now done in this series. So here is the actual cover of just the single book. And so The Guardian is book 2 of the O'Malley series by Dee Henderson. In this one, we meet Marcus O'Malley, like he's the main character, and then there is Sherry Hanford, who becomes kind of the victim and witness that Marcus ends up protecting. And so basically, Marcus and Sherry had met at like a political fundraiser type gala dinner event, something, and they arranged to go for coffee the next morning to get to know each other a little bit better because Marcus was working. Well, before they can have coffee, a shooting happens and Sherry becomes a witness and a victim. And then it becomes clear that somebody does not want that witness to live. So now she has been targeted. So Marcus is a U.S. Marshal, so he is working with the group, with his partner, and under protection for Sherry until they can catch the shooter and the person that's hired this other person to get her. So during that course of that investigation, we get to know Sherry pretty well. And she has been through a heart-wrenching situation. And the strength of her to continue on and to be determined to kind of follow the marshal's instructions and allow them to kind of really, her whole life is upturned. And she has to travel from one place to another to hide, kind of thing, kept in a safe house. But she continues to look towards God and leans on God for the strength. Very inspiring, very inspiring. And Marcus, he's the oldest of the O'Malley family, has kind of always seen himself as the guardian, the protector of the family, hence the name, the Guardian. And so he lost his mom when he was really young, and that's how he ended up in the orphanage. And so he had a faith in God at that time. And because he prayed for his mom and then his mom didn't get healed, so he kind of turned his back on God. And watching Sherry and Sherry's witness to him, so you follow Marcus kind of discovering. During all this, we still get to know like everything that's going on with Jennifer, and the O'Malley siblings kind of rally around, and I loved it. And then there is Marcus's main partner, Quinn, who I can't wait to get to know more about. Like, he really intrigued me. But I really loved Marcus and Sherry. Like, Marcus was such a sweet guy and tried to bring, like, lightness into the situation and try to keep everybody upbeat and just so sweet. So, yes. So, I gave this book 5 stars because I just loved it. And I can't wait to read the next one. And I am shocking myself. I am really enjoying listening to the audiobook. And the narrator for this series, I don't know, he's just nice, pleasant to listen to. I really enjoyed it. Okay, and then I read The Christmas Kiss by Shanna Hatfield. This is book number 10 of the Hardman Holiday series. And yes, I read a Christmas book in May. It was one of the prompts that came up on my wheel for my game, and I'd already kind of vetoed a prompt before this, so I couldn't veto again. So that is why I read a Christmas book. But this couple, and we meet Gracie and Cord. Gracie grew up in Hardman, Oregon. It is set in 1909. So Gracie grew up and then went away for a little while, and she is returning home to her parents' ranch, or what she thinks is her parents' ranch. She arrives at the ranch and nobody's around, and everything seems so different to her. She ends up running into Cord Granger, who has recently bought the ranch from her parents, and they don't get off to the best start. So once Cord directs her where her parents are, she finds her parents and kind of gets the explanation of everything that's happened in the time that she was away and why she didn't know. And they didn't know that she was coming home either. So, yeah. So it was quite an interesting start to the book. The two of them reminded me so much of the couple from The Christmas Bargain, which is book 1 of this series. Just their interactions and the way they presented approach life and stuff. I really liked this couple. And my favorite couple from this series is Luke and Philly from book number 1, and they play an active role in this book. Well, they're active characters in this book, along with a bunch of other characters that we've met or are featured throughout the Hardman series. So that was really fun to pick up with characters that I've known before. So I really enjoyed that part of it. That's really what my notes are, is I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed catching up and kind of refamiliarizing myself with the community and kind of what's been going on since I last read about the community. This was a really fun, sweet read, and I gave it 5 stars because I really enjoyed being back in Hardman and I liked these characters. So then the next book I picked up was The Lady and the Lionheart by Joanne Bischof. This is a historical romance set in Virginia in the late 1800s, and we meet Charlie Lionheart, who is a lion tamer with the circus, and he is caring for his niece Holland, who is 7 months old, and he takes her to the hospital because she's been really sick for a few days and he doesn't know what to do. When he takes her to the hospital, he runs into Nurse Ella, and so Ella starts caring for Holland, and then due to circumstances that happen, he has to return back to the circus, and Ella goes to the circus, like to where they're set up, to continuing looking after Holland. So as Charlie and Ella get to know one another a little bit more, you start to watch a bit of the relationship grow, and we learn more about them as characters. There's some really hard topics addressed with this one because Ella's had a situation in her past that she's still kind of working her way through and dealing with, and then everything that's going on with Charlie and just the sacrifice that Charlie has made for his niece. And when we find out more and more about that, it's like, wow, like he gave up so much and sacrificed himself so much for her, and he has such a goal in life to make it. Like, Charlie was definitely my favorite character. He was an example of Jesus Christ and how he sacrificed and died on the cross for our sins. Jesus was did that for us. Charlie does what he does for Holland in the exact same way. And he's expressing it that way, trying to care for the love. And he respects God and wants others to know about God. Ella has been struggling with God because of her past, and Charlie comes and tries to show her that God is with her through it all. I really liked Charlie, as I said, and there were 3 sisters that were part of the circus that kind of really befriended Ella as well, and I really liked them. They were really entertaining, and the way they interacted with one another, I really liked. What I didn't really enjoy about this book is the writing felt choppy at times, and it seemed to jump, and sometimes the story didn't flow or make sense, because at one point Ella has to kind of like sneak into the circus and be kept hidden from the madame that runs the circus, I think is her name. Like, I think that's kind of her role. Because the circus people don't want her to know that they have an outsider with them. But then later on, Ella ends up traveling with the circus, and there's no explanation why she doesn't have to be hidden anymore. Like, that just didn't make any sense to me. I don't know, that was weird. Yeah. So I I think I was expecting a lot more about this book because I'd heard so many good things about it. But while I liked the character, of Charlie especially, like I loved him. And I hurt for him when we found out what he's done to protect Holland and kind of how other people see him now because of that, or how he is being treated. But I didn't connect with Ella. Like, I just didn't really understand. And her reaction to Charlie when she finds out just made me so upset, so frustrated with her. It was like, no, like, you know who he is like. Just because of this one thing, you're gonna, yeah. So, I don't know. I didn't love the book. So I gave it 3 stars just because I didn't connect. But I think that's also, there was a lot of descriptions with Charlie, like kind of hanging out with the lions and playing with them and stuff that didn't really fit with the story for me personally. Like, it was just like, I could care less about circuses, so that just didn't really, I didn't associate with that, I guess. So that is my thoughts on that book. But the symbolism of the faith, yes, I really enjoyed that. So then the next book and the last book that I've read so far was The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs Kip. Wow. This was a difficult book for me. I kind of knew going in that it was going to be difficult because I knew that Mrs. Kip is an elderly woman who is entering hospice, and so we know that she doesn't really have long to live. And then we meet Aiden, who is the journalist who believes she is being assigned to write Mrs. Kip's obit, but really she's being sent there to find out a bigger story. Kind of know more of the background. We meet Clara Kip at the very, like, she's the first character we meet, and we're kind of following her as she's moving into hospice care. And her personality and energy and outlook on life and the importance of being friends and loving others, like, what a wonderful example for us to follow. Like, she was so, I loved her. I was so drawn to her. And knowing what I knew going in, it was like, oh, this is gonna be hard because I really like this character, and I know by the end the death is gonna happen, right? So, I mean, I knew to expect that. So I knew it was gonna be a difficult read, but I don't think I really, I don't know. I guess I didn't think about it enough to know kind of how difficult for me personally it was going to be. Because my dad was in palliative care for 4 days before he died, and we spent those days sitting by his side. And so this really brought that back to me because it was really described. Because Clara sits with an older gentleman during his last few days. And so we're experiencing that and how Mrs. Kip is showing her love to him. And then we watch Mrs. Kip kind of pass on. And it was just so much that was described was so much like what I experienced. And so it brought back so much. Like, it just... But there are so many good messages throughout this book. Mrs. Kip had some wonderful quotes that she said. One of them was, "Sometimes we do things in life without knowing what ripples flow from it long afterward." Or, Mrs. Kip sees herself as she's just lived an ordinary life. She always dreamed of going to Brazil and working with kids there and kind of brightening their lives. just serving the kids over there. And she was never able to go. And so she always stayed in Kansas City and felt like she only lived an ordinary life. She doesn't feel like she was special or has a story to tell because of that. But her goal in life was to befriend people and be there for people and love people. And one of the quotes she said is, "I simply tried to love people as best as I could for as long as I was privileged to be with them." And as Aiden is talking to her and finding more about her background and stuff, she learns that Mrs. Kip helped so many people. And like the ripple effect of her life on others, amazing. So she worked with this other person to assist refugees coming into Kansas City and kind of getting them set up and helping them with English and helping them like kind of learn like everyday American life. And the ripple effects of that service changed the culture of America, or Kansas City in particular. And she didn't realize how much her actions that moment in those few years grew and changed so much others. And I really enjoyed kind of seeing that and learning about that. And I learned about a period of history that I didn't know anything about. So that was really interesting to me. What I didn't really like about this book was, and I mean, I should have known this, was how described the hospice care was from the medical standpoint. And just being with like kind of what a person goes through as they're approaching their last days. It was too much for me. And not that it was graphic or anything like that. It was just too much for me because I have such a personal experience with that. And it's kind of a moment I don't really want to remember personally. I'd rather remember the good times, right? So I think that's why I had such a difficult time with this book. And also because I didn't know a lot of the story of these refugees or the country they were kind of like that. That was all foreign to me. I had no idea. I never even heard of the country. So it was kind of like, so I gave this book 4 stars because it touched me, and Mrs. Kip is such a wonderful example of showing love to others and how little things matter. So that is what I've read so far this month. I am currently listening to The Truth Seeker by Dee Henderson, which is book number 3 in the O'Malleys. And I am reading Across the Blue by Carrie Ternasky, which I am doing a reading vlog on. So that will be coming either next or soon. I don't know which video is going to be next. It's going to be a vlog of some sort, because I also have a vacation vlog coming up at some time. So yes, so that is what I have read so far this month. What books have stood out to you so far this month? Is there one that I should add to my TBR? I'd love to chat. Let's chat in the comments below. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and have a good day. Bye.